Hey there, John Morris here, johnmorrisonline.com. Welcome back to another episode of The John Morris Show. So today I'm going to be posting an interview I did with Bojan Durmic. I have trouble with the last name, but Bojan is someone that I met. He's over on the Discord server. And the other day was talking about some of the stuff that he had me. You may have seen his, I took a look at his profile and did a critique actually right here on YouTube of his Upwork profile, and after that he kind of went in, made some changes, and started doing things, taking a different approach to things, and was in the Discord server talking about some of the results that he had got from that. And so I wanted to talk to him about that because I get a lot of flack because I still say that Upwork is a place that you can definitely go on and get work. I don't think by any means it's perfect or anything like that, but I still think if you take the right approach to it, you can get work over there. And I tend to get a lot of flack for that. And a lot of what I hear is people who are brand new to Upwork who are having trouble trying to get going and getting some of that initial work. And Bojan was really in that spot. He's been on Upwork for a little bit, but when he first started off, he really was having some trouble getting work. And wasn't having good success rate in terms of the jobs he was bidding on and how many times he was getting hired and so forth. And so again, he made some changes and was able to get that success as someone who's still pretty new on Upwork, and so and doesn't have the big long job history and this huge portfolio and all those sorts of things. So if you're someone who's first off open-minded and thinking of I want to go on Upwork, and maybe you're brand new and I just want to start off right, or maybe you've tried it before and it's something you've struggled with, then I think this interview will be eye-opening because he talks about some of the very specific things that he changed in terms of how he goes about writing his proposals and what the success he's had as a result of that, how much of a dramatic of a difference it's been. So some really good stuff in this interview for you to pick up on if you're interested in getting work over on Upwork. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into this interview. So Bojan, thanks for coming on, and I'll start off by maybe just having you kind of tell the story a little bit, kind of like you did in the Discord server the other day of kind of your before after, in a sense, like maybe what you were doing before, the results you were getting, and then maybe the things you changed and what you saw as results after that.
All right. So first of all, hi John. Thanks for having me here.
Yep.
It's been a long journey. I joined Upwork, I think 1 year ago, and I can't say really I had much success when I began. It was very hard simply because, number one, I didn't have much projects behind me, and number two, I didn't know how to make a good Upwork profile. And number three, I was writing very bad proposals, which means clients just won't hire me.
Yeah.
Now, what I think is that the clients are not machines. They don't look at data and say this guy is the best. They look into their emotion, and there are some certain things I think that clients really, really hate, and I was doing many of those things. So first of all, I think I'm going to start with my profile. John, you've made a lot of videos about Upwork profiles, how we can make Upwork profiles better, how we can start freelancing without having any projects whatsoever. So, those videos were really helping me, and they made me think that I have to build credibility.
Yes.
So I had the great luck that I developed a website for insurance company, and I used that as my starting point, as something that I'm going to build my credibility with.
Yeah, and just to jump in here, that's something to really point out. First off, you're absolutely right. Credibility and trust is probably the biggest thing because they're about to spend however many hundreds or thousands of dollars. But what a lot of people know that, but what I see a lot of freelancers miss is they think, well, I don't have anything. And the reality is that you got to get really comfortable or you got to get really creative with how you go about doing that and find things that, now in your case, you happen to have an insurance company that you could lean on that was, like you said, kind of lucky or handy. But even if you don't have that, there's all sorts of things. Even if you've gone through college and college experience and things that you've done there, you can lean on. You just have to get a little creative and realize that it's absolutely imperative that you have some sort of credibility. So just want to jump in there,
Exactly.
but I'll let you continue.
Yeah, well, I used that to build my credibility, but if I didn't have insurance company, I think I would have made some kind of simple websites, something like HTML
Mm-hmm.
themes, and just release them for free. Because it's important to have something. You can't say
Yes.
you are an expert because there are 20 other people who are applying to those jobs that actually have projects, that actually have reviews, they have everything. They beat you on every single criteria. You have Upwork is a game. It's a game where you play, where 20 players play and only one player wins.
Exactly.
The one who gets the job. And to win this game, you have to win clients' trust. And to win clients' trust, you have to stand behind by everything you say, And so what I did is I really wasn't making a great Upwork profile simply because I listed all kinds of technologies that I supposedly knew. I told people I'm an expert when I didn't have any kind of projects. My proposals were extremely bad, and you know, after applying for over 30 jobs, I only got one.
Mm.
That, and I spent a lot of time actually, finding these jobs and writing them proposals while actually not getting jobs, and that's bad. And I have to say, I really lost some confidence in myself. I started questioning, should I be here? Should I just find another website? Should I try to find local clients and not go on global market? So then I basically just Googled, like last chance, and I found your videos and I
Mm.
started, changing some things up. But, after changing my profile, things got a little bit better, but things got really good when I finally decided to completely change the way I write proposals.
Mm.
So my proposals used to be a copy pasting, I just wrote one proposal where I listed how I'm a good worker, how I'm a hardworking guy, how I can speak English, how, I will give my best to make the best project ever, but
Yeah. And that's
those
a
proposals are bad because
that's a
clients really can recognize copy pasted content, and
yeah.
that's bad.
That's a really common approach that people take is, I know these languages, I'm a hard worker, I'm reliable, this, that, and the other. Like, that's the clients. It's not only copy paste, but that's the same kind of story that literally every freelancer over there is sending them in their proposals. So it's hard to really stand out that way.
Yeah, and so I decided to completely flip what I was doing. I had still like a template which I used to write my proposals, but they weren't just copy pasted for every client, because the clients have to think that you are actually writing them a brand new proposal from scratch. They want to feel special. They want to feel like you really, really, really care about their project, that you are very interested, And when you have that approach, the client will think, oh, this guy is different. Look, he's not just another copy-paste freelancer. He's better. And
Yeah.
that's that's the whole point. So basically, this is how I did it. First of all, you say a greeting, and usually what I do is I say, I see that you need help creating something. So if a client is looking for a blog, you say, you need help creating a blog. If he needs to create a website for his company, you need a website for your company. So that part is important because you actually show that you read the whole thing, and then you didn't just copy and paste your proposals. You actually read the thing. You know what he wants, and you know you, that feeling itself makes client think that you are the guy who he can trust with.
Yeah, it makes them feel special, and also, you know, again, most of the other proposals they're getting are probably gonna be copy paste, and make them feel like they didn't read the actual job spec or whatever. And so again, it's you make them feel special, you make them all that, but you also just stand out from everybody else, right? You just look different, and
Exactly.
and that's, I mean, half the battle in a site like Upwork, where, like you said, they have 20 or 30 other people who are bidding on the same job as you are.
Yeah, and for my last project, there were about 15 people, 10 to 15 people who wrote proposals. I wrote my proposal, and the client basically chose me after 3 minutes. I get 3 messages. First message is, I'd like to hire you. Second message is, I'm going to sleep, but here's an offer. And he immediately sends an offer for a contract, and he puts half of the amount in the escrow. So that means, he already decided who is he going to
Yeah.
hire.
Yeah, they're
And
hungry. They're hungry for good developers over there.
of course they are.
So a lot of freelancers think that the clients over there are just horrible and bad and this, that, the other, but they're as hungry for good developers as you are for good clients. And a lot
Yeah,
of
of
this is
course.
just getting out of each other's way and speaking to people just on a human level, you know? So,
Yeah, exactly, and so first of all, what you should write after you need help creating a website is, I can help you with that and I can start right away. That means, if he gets a message, if I choose this guy, he's going to start working on this project this second, you
mhm.
know, and that's great because, clients usually want their jobs to be completed as soon as possible. It's 21st centuries. People are busy. People don't have time. People are not patient, and you really have to show it that you can be faster than others.
Yeah, I
Now,
agree. I agree. Speed is a huge, I mean, speed is I call it the X factor. You Everything else could be the same, and if you can deliver just even slightly faster, the people will go with you, and they'll not only go with you, they'll kind of rave to all their friends about you, about how quickly you got something done. It's a huge, huge, huge factor.
yeah, exactly. Now, what you should do next in your proposal is basically list all the previous projects that are in any way relevant to the project that client wants. So if the client wants you to create him a WordPress plugin, you should say, I developed these WordPress plugins. And you put like one, two, or even 1, 2, 3 plugins that you made. So the client knows, oh, this guy has already done things like this before. It's not going to be a problem. You should also uh, describe exactly, the biggest challenges, the features of those projects. You have to, this way you build credibility and trust. Client gets the message, oh, okay, this guy, he can do it because he did that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just empty words. It's words with proof.
Yeah, it's not saying, like, so this is one of the things that I try to communicate, and I thought you did really well in your proposal, was people will try to say, they'll make statements, I am reliable, or I am experienced, or I'm good at building X plugins or X type of projects, right? But those don't have, I mean, anybody can say that. What
Yeah.
really affects clients, what really makes you believable and positions you as an expert that they can trust and want to trust, is when you can point to facts, when you can point to things, like you said, things you've actually done that show, that demonstrate. It's about demonstrating, not telling. You demonstrate, I know how to write these, let's say, WordPress plugins, because I've written 6 other WordPress plugins, and 3 of them do a very similar thing to what you want me to do with your site. And so when you take the mindset from telling to demonstrating, that's when you can really start writing stuff that is compelling for clients, that's believable, that builds your credibility and makes them trust you. So what you're saying, I mean, those listening, what he's saying right here is real. I just want to point that out. It's really critical.
Yep. And so for my case, the client wanted some kind of advanced blog applications. He wanted a website where he can write blogs, where he can have several different user types, where the users could actually post their own things. So something like a mini social network. And so, I wrote him. I have recently developed a complex web applications. It allows him to create and edit his users, to search them. He thinks, all right, I'm going to need those things too, and that's why it's important. So stating your previous projects is really, really important. So, and the next thing is, you have to have this aggressive nature. You're not begging the client to hire you. You are actually kind of making him hire you. And this is how you can do it. So you just use will instead of would. So for your project, I will be using. What that means is, it's a technique. Basically, you just tell him, you just act like you're already been hired. That's very important, I think, because it makes client think that you have very high self-confidence.
Yeah.
And then the client actually begins to trust you because you are so confident.
Yeah.
That's like going outside and seeing some girl, and if she looks confident, if she looks successful, you're gonna think she is. And same thing is with freelancers and clients.
Right. Yeah. I did a lot of face-to-face sales for a lot of years and got pretty good at it. And in that world, they call it assuming the sale. So the language you would use would be assumptive. You would just assume that they were going to get it. And then you would be like, if they said no, it was almost like you were shocked. Like, what? Really? And what it does is, it's the way the technique works is, people tend to, when you're in an interaction, I'm going to probably get a little too nerdy here, but when you're in an interaction with another person, what rapport is usually one person will start to almost kind of mimic the behavior of the other person. And so as a salesperson, what you wanted was, you wanted to get your prospect essentially mimicking your behavior. And there are techniques for doing that and so forth in face-to-face sales. But once you have that happening, then when they start to mimic you a little bit and you have that rapport, you would start to be assumptive about the sale, which would cause them to be assumptive about the sale. And by the time you got to actually asking for the sale, it was already kind of a foregone conclusion. And that's exactly what you're talking about here, is you're assuming the sale, and it lets off that confidence. It also gets their mind thinking in those terms of, like, I'm already going to hire this person. And it's
exactly
a very, very effective technique.
Yeah. And another thing you can do to build trust when writing proposals is give clients advice. What you can do is, you can just explain, why are you using the technologies that you wanted to use. So why are you using, for example, the Bootstrap framework? You're using it because it will make a website responsive. It will take less time to make, those things. In my case, I advised my client against using WordPress because I feel it was too bloated and it had too many unnecessary code that would slow down his website. And I think he really liked that part because it shows to him that I actually care and I'm not selfish about giving advice, And that's a little bit of value that he gets and that he'll benefit from. So
Yeah, it's almost
That
like
is,
a sample.
it just makes client go one step towards you, towards hiring you, and
Yeah.
that's what matters.
It's almost like you're giving them, it's like when you go to the grocery store and you get a sample of like a little sausage and you taste it. And if you like it, you're like, oh, well, I want more. And a big part of what you do as a developer or as a freelancer isn't just building something for somebody, it's your advice along the way. Here's a really good example. When I did the project that I did for the Small Business Owners Council for Inc. magazine, we went through that project and I built the membership site for them. But when we got all done, the guy that I was working with, and this was a best-selling author, this was a fairly well-known guy, right? A smart guy, a guy who probably in his mind thinks he knows a lot. The thing that he said to me when we got done wasn't, thanks for getting this done, it wasn't anything to do with the build. His exact words were, thanks for all your wisdom on this project. And because the thing that he valued most wasn't necessarily that I built it and built it fast. It was everything it took in terms of my experience and my knowledge to be able to get to the point where we could build it and build it fast, which was the thing that he had been lacking up to that point. So a big part of what you do as a freelancer isn't just building stuff for people. It's the wisdom that you bring to the table. And if you're new and inexperienced, that you may not have as much as someone who's more experienced, but almost always, because you know the technical part of things, you're going to have more wisdom in that specific area than the client that you're working with. And so giving that advice is like, in your proposal, is like giving them a sample, a little chunk of that sausage of the wisdom that you can ultimately bring to the table. And again, it's demonstrating, it's not saying I'm wise, it's actually giving them a relevant, valuable piece of advice and demonstrating
Exactly.
it to them.
You know, another thing I would really recommend everyone to do is always tell clients, what the process from beginning the project to the end will go. The reason for that is the clients actually feel some kind of fear. They're going to spend money. They're going to spend their time waiting for someone to complete the project they wanted. It's really important to them. So how you can do it is you can just tell them, all right, we're going to do this, and this, and that's how we're going to go with this project. So what I did in my case is basically told him, first of all, we're going to chat about this project. Then I'm going to do the design. Then if you like the design, I'm going to do the code. And then you're going to have a look and give your feedback, make some small changes, and publish the website. It's nothing complicated. It's like 5 to 6 sentences.
Mm-hmm.
But it really makes client trust you more because, he's not going to get surprised. That's how it's going to be. And I never actually used to do that before, and the clients, when they would talk to me, they would ask me, how are you going to do this? Which technologies are you going to be using? Why, So I just answer all of these questions directly in the proposal, and that's really important. I think so.
Yeah, it's about fear of the unknown, right? We all have a fear of the unknown, especially when you're about to spend a significant amount of money on the unknown. So the more you can make it unknown, the more you can just tell them exactly what the process is going to be. That's why, honestly, that's why clients look so heavily at portfolios when they evaluate a freelancer, because it's it gives them some sense of what their finished product might look like. And so in this case, you're just giving them a fear, relieving the fear of unknown about the actual process to get to the end product. So your portfolio tells them about the end product. You're laying out your process here, tells them about what that process is going to be like. And it just helps deal with the fear of unknown. And again, it's always relative to what everybody else is doing, right? Most of the other, we've talked probably about 5 or 6 things here so far. Most of the other developers that are sending them proposals probably aren't going to do any of these, or if they do, it might be 1 or 2. So by you going through and doing 4, 5, 6 of these things, you're going to look so different and appeal to them so much more than everything else that they're seeing. That's why it can work so well, because you're just stacking these things up that really just make you super appealing.
Yeah, because I'm not really, as you said, I'm kind of beginner at all of this Upwork thing. I have so far only 2 projects completed on Upwork, and those were for the same client. So I had only one client on Upwork before I got this one. So it's not like I had a great profile, I had a great portfolio that it ultimately decided that I'm going to be hired. I think it was like 70% it was the proposal. And I just want to state this thing is, at the end, you shouldn't just say, have a nice day, or respectfully, or anything like that. You should like try to keep the conversation going. Like you should imagine that you are with that person face to face, and you should ask them, do you have any questions for me? Do you have any questions for me? Is everything, do you understand everything? That kind of thing, it makes the client want to answer you. It's again the psychological thing. And most of these Upwork processes that we go through, such as talking with clients, getting hired and stuff, it's all just psychology.
Mm-hmm.
So having the question at the end, do you have any questions for me, really makes them want to answer you and actually ask you something.
Yeah. It puts the ball back in their court. Like they have to, now it's almost like you're expecting some sort of response from them, and just people just feel natural. Just feels natural for people to want to answer something like that. So having gone through this, I want to just maybe step back big picture wise for just a second. So you were doing, when it came to your proposals, as you mentioned, you were doing it a different way before, and you had mentioned, thought maybe making some mistakes there, and you had applied to 30 different jobs and got one, so that was kind of your results there. Now we've talked
Only
about
one reply.
only
Only
one.
one reply and one job, so no one even considered me other than that one client.
Right. So now we've talked about everything that you changed. So can you talk a little bit about what the results have been since you made these changes, in terms of how many clients you've sent out proposals to, and the sort of responses you've got back, and so forth?
Of course. So I actually made these changes pretty recently. I made them like 2 weeks ago. And so far I sent 3 proposals. I got 2 answers. So out of 3 proposals, 2 clients answered to me. I actually rejected one client because he had an impossible deadline, and I got hired by the second one. The third one, who didn't answer me, actually didn't hire anyone. When I look at the job posting, it's still an open job. He still didn't hire anyone. And so we can't really say that I did something bad there, because the client obviously didn't choose anyone. So actually having 2 out of 3 clients get back to you it's impressive. I mean, if you do that, you're gonna get a job sooner or later.
Yeah,
It's not questionable.
Yeah, you're gonna spend a lot less time bidding on jobs, and a lot more time actually working on jobs, and
And earning money.
yeah, and getting paid as a result. So, and of course, as you go on, you'll kind of start to see it'll kind of fluctuate in terms of what your response rate is. But I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, and I know for you, because I've been through this. And for you, it may only be 3 so far because you recently made this change, but it's probably, I would guess, pretty obvious to you the difference between what you were doing before and what you're doing now. Like, you don't have any question that going forward, you're just going to get a lot better response rate as you continue to do this, I would imagine.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Because you just completely, you can just immediately immediately tell the difference. So,
Yeah,
all
I
right.
mean, you can actually go to Upwork and go to the profile, and then you go find work and you find my stats. And if I go to my stats, in the recent time, all of these bars are above average.
Mm,
So I got viewed above average, I got interviewed above average number, and I got hired above average.
hmm.
So, and people didn't even bother to reply to me back then, and now, I'm actually hired. It's impressive.
So what I want to do is maybe just we've kind of talked about a lot of things. Maybe come back and recap the approach really succinctly in terms of when it comes to writing the proposal. You kind of talked about, okay, the first thing you should write is this, the second thing you should write is this, the third thing that you should write is this. So maybe kind of want to keep this interview succinct, but maybe we can kind of do a little bit of a recap of exactly what those steps are. So I can start off, and then maybe if you want to jump in. But the first thing I remember you mentioning was that you should kind of call out, or you should say, hey, my name is Bojan, and I can absolutely work on your project. And in that, calling out the things that they mentioned that they want built in their job specs, so that they know that you read their description.
Yeah, it's very important. And also you should add that you can start immediately and it will be no problem to make.
Mm-hmm. And then, okay, so then from there, what, again, just to recap for everybody so they can get it succinct, what would be the next thing after that?
The next thing would be to note your actual past experience, provide some proof that you can really complete the project that the client wants.
Okay. Next?
And next thing is you should tell the client which technologies are you going to be using, why. Also, we talked about how it's important to use assumptive, to assume that we're going to get a
Mm-hmm.
job, by using will instead of would, etc. And the next thing is we should give advice to the client, any kind of advice, like advice why we should use some technology, why we should not use the other technology, things like that to make you build trust.
Okay.
Next thing is the future pacing. So basically you tell the client how the process exactly is going to go. We have to explain to the client we are going to go through these stages. Number 1, talk. Number 2, design. Number 3, code. Number 4, feedback. And number 5, publishing the website. So that way the client does not have that fear of the unknown. That is very, very important. And next, you should have a nice ending by asking them to reply to you by telling them, do you have any questions for me? And we already talked about why.
Yep. All right, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about all this. I really, when you kind of told your story, it really just kind of stuck out to me because it sounded like you had made a real conscious effort to kind of do things differently, which is really hard for a lot of people to do, especially with what we do, because a lot of us, and I'm completely guilty of this, don't get me wrong, we tends to attract people that are smarter, that kind of know or think they're smarter, and so we kind of tend to assume that what we're doing must be the right way. And so to make that change and say, okay, whatever I'm doing now doesn't seem to be working the way I want it to, I'm going to make, like you said, a wholesale change in how I do something. That really takes a lot of guts. So I guess, well, for what it's worth, I want to commend you for doing that. And hopefully you continue to see the success and the results from doing that, because, obviously you absolutely deserve that. So,
Yeah, thank you.
all right, so that's my interview with Bojan. Hopefully you got something out of that, and a little more insight in how you can go about doing your proposals. Now, We talked a lot about proposals, and he kind of mentioned this at the beginning with his profile, but the other side of beyond the proposals, but really the two big things that you have to, I think, the kind of skills that you have to master when it comes to Upwork are how you go about writing your proposals, which he gave you a ton on that, but also your profile, because when you send a proposal out, people are going to click on your profile. And so your profile has to do a good job of selling them on your services. But it's not only that. If you've never looked at Upwork from the client side of things, really what it ultimately is for the client is just a search engine. And you just type into a search box what you need help with, and a list of freelancers come up. So your profile not only has to do a good job of selling people on your services when they click on your profile, it also has to rank. It has to do a good job of ranking in those searches in the first place, so that it even comes up in those listings. And then it also has to look good on the actual search results page so that people will want to click on it. And then once they get on it, then sell them on your service. So it has to accomplish a number of different things. And I think most freelancers tend to focus on the once someone clicks on it, selling them on their services part. Like, I think most people understand that, but maybe not so much about showing up in the rankings, about making the listing be something that people want to click and that sort of thing. And so in my Upwork 101 course, I have a whole section on this where I talk about building your profile. And now you can get my Upwork 101 completely free. It's over on Skillshare. You just sign up for the 2-month free trial over there. johnmorrisonline.com/Skillshare. Sign up for the trial, and you'll get access to the entire course, my PHP 101 course, the 17,000 other courses that they have on there. You get access to all of it. And if you cancel before the trial is up, then you never pay a dime and you get all of that training for free. So you can get it absolutely free if you want to. But in that course, I talk specifically about the things you need to do and think about in order to rank. What your title should say, what your tag should be, what you should write. Specifically, there's a three-part process or 3 sections that you should cover in your overview, and only those 3 sections. And we talk about how to write your overview so it not only sells your services but also helps you to rank in those search listings, what tests you should take, your certifications, what your portfolio should look like, all of that. Everything you need to know about building your profile to be to show up in search rankings, to be attractive in those listings, and then to sell people on your services once they click on it. And it's specifically targeted towards you if you don't have a bunch of portfolio items. You're maybe brand new to Upwork or brand new to freelancing altogether, so you don't have a bunch of client history. You don't have a bunch of portfolio items. You don't have a job history. You don't have job success for it. You have no rank over on Upwork, and you're starting from scratch, and either you're just getting into it and you want to do it right, or maybe you've tried it in the past and struggled with it, and it's something that you're like, man, if I could get that to work, though, it could be good. That's what it's targeted towards, how to handle all of that stuff and still be able to show up in those search rankings really higher than you probably should, just by understanding how their algorithms work. So anyway, again, that's what I go into inside of that course. It's the other side kind of what Bojan talked about. You couple those 2 things together with everything he talked about, proposals, you add in the profile stuff, and I really believe that you can have some great success over on Upwork with just those 2 things. There's other things to talk about, but even just those 2 things, I think you could have some really great success. So again, thanks to Bojan. If you want to check out Upwork 101, johnmorrisonline.com/Skillshare. Again, it's absolutely free over there for you. And that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for watching. If you liked the episode, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and we'll talk to you later.